understand this thing is going so well that I've got to be quick because we don't want to interrupt the flow. But it is wonderful to see all of you. It's especially wonderful to see these extraordinary young people up on stage here today. As I look across the room, I see a lot of friends, people who, in their own capacities, have done just great things for young people and care so deeply about the future of our country. You know, we've got terrific members of Congress like Bobby and Ruben. We have outstanding mayors like Mayor Ryback. I love that man. We've got some pretty famous folks like John over there, who has put so much time and effort into our service agenda and has worked with the administration, the First Lady on a whole bunch of stuff, and is just a great friend. You know he cares about young people because he's got a whole bunch of them himself in his house. and knows how critical it is for us to give them opportunity and to see all the activists and members of organizations across the board present here today. I'm very, very gratified. And then when I see the businesses who already made significant commitments, it reminds me that there's something about this country when we get in a tight spot, people pull together and everybody makes a contribution. And so for business leaders who are here, thank you for the commitment that you are making. I already mentioned this in the brief introduction you gave, that I got my start professionally as a community organizer in neighborhoods where a lot of kids didn't have a chance. Now, I was somebody who myself was raised without a father in the house by a single mom. There were times where we were on food stamps. My mother relied on scholarships. We relied on the generosity and support of my grandparents to make ends meet. But the truth was, I was also growing up in Hawaii. and I make that point because what was striking to me when I went to Chicago, first in New York and then Chicago, to organize in many of these communities, what I realized was these young people were as smart or smarter than I was. They were as gifted or more gifted than I was. But because of the circumstances in which they found themselves, because the communities they were growing up in were less forgiving of mistakes, because many of them had made fewer mistakes than I had, but they had less margin for error. Doors were being closed to them very rapidly at a very early age. And you'd drive and you'd see young people gathering on a corner without hope, without prospects for the future, without a clear sense of direction. You'd go into schools and you'd talk to young people and you'd say, what do you want to be? And if you caught them young enough, their dreams were just as big as any child anywhere. They wanted to be doctors and lawyers, business leaders. But when you ask them, all right, well, what are the steps you're going to take to get there? They didn't have that roadmap. And it made me realize very early on that for young people, so much depends on a community of people who are willing to provide them that roadmap, to give them that sense of possibility, not just in the abstract, but in concrete terms, to say, this is what you need to do in order to achieve your thing. These are the opportunities that are out there if you work, and you're disciplined, and you put in the effort. And that's why summer jobs are so important, because it's not an abstraction, it's not a classroom lecture, it's not a motivational speech. For young people to be able to sit in an atmosphere in which people are providing services or making goods, adding value, and to say to themselves, you know what, I could do that too. And for them to then have the opportunity to see somebody who's already in a position that they might aspire to, who says, well, here's how I got here, and here's what was required. Here are the steps that you need to take. That's invaluable. It's critical because it sparks and not only ambition, but it also then channels that ambition in ways that are actually concrete and can lead to a better future for our young people. And we live in a time now where we can't afford to waste any of our young people. This country's changing and the world is changing. And the business leaders who are here, they're here partly out of a sense of civic duty, but also because they realize this is our workforce for the future. And they will only be successful, and our economy will only be successful, if we've got every single player on the field doing the best that they can. And so, for all of you to be making this commitment is extraordinarily important. Now, what we try to do is to make sure that government is supportive of these efforts. And since I came into office, my administration has been hugely supportive of summer jobs programs. The Recovery Act supported more than 300,000 summer jobs in 2009 and 2010. Thanks to the leadership of Hilda Solis, who is here today, my Secretary of Labor, and many of you, another 80,000 young people got summer jobs last year. A lot of these young people have gone on to graduate from high school or a college degree. They're finding jobs and careers in this 21st century economy. Some of them even work for your companies. Some of the businesses who are represented here. So I'm grateful to you for giving them that chance. But the reason we're here is there's a lot more to do. We are still working our way out of the worst financial crisis and the worst economic crisis that we've seen since the Great Depression. And a lot of communities that had nothing to do with the mess have felt the biggest consequences. And nobody's been more affected than young people. Our youth unemployment rate is extraordinarily high. And so it makes this effort that much more critical. And that's part of the reason why, as an element of the American Jobs Act that I announced in September, I proposed a summer and year-round jobs program for young people. The idea behind what we call Pathways Back to Work Fund was very simple. We've got good evidence of what works when it comes to young people, giving them a chance to build skills, gain employment, mentoring, counseling, soft skills, hard skills. But in addition to civic participation, that needs funding. And so we allocated a considerable amount of money in the American Jobs Act to make that happen. But despite the crisis of youth unemployment, Congress said no. Well, America's youth and America's economy can't wait for Congress. And as I've said several times before, I don't intend to wait for Congress. So that's why we're here today to kick off this Summer Jobs Plus initiative. I am asking each of you and your fellow community and business leaders across the nation to commit to hiring low-income and disconnected youth this summer. I am imploring you to take a chance and change somebody's life. And as you can see from the young people here today, there is such amazing talent to be tapped if you just give them a chance. If you can't make a full-time hire, I'm asking you to make another commitment to these young people. Internships, mentoring programs, shadowing opportunities, resume workshops. Those are investments you can make. got 33 businesses and organizations and 4 agencies in my administration that have already committed to providing nearly 180,000 employment opportunities to America's youth. That's a commitment that we've already got in place, but we can do more. And I'm directing my administration and the White House Council for Community Solutions to go out into communities and identify innovative ways to connect more young people to meaningful opportunities, and then I want them to report back to me so we can keep building this thing and growing it and making it better in successive years. This is going to be an all-hands-on-deck effort. We need everybody to step up. I want, as you listen to these remarkable stories from these young people, to think about, for every one of them, there are probably 100, 1,000, 10,000 young people who could be up on this stage if given a chance. And think about the modest investment that you can make that will transform their lives forever, and in the process transform their life. That's what has brought you here together. I want you to know that your president is 100% behind. Thank you very much.
How about that?